It has been established that persons who have recently died have been returning to life and committing acts of murder.
So you think you've seen every zombie movie that matters? You haven't. Today I have 7 hand-picked nightmares that earn every drop of blood and every scream. We've got mall riots, screaming trains, fungal infections, and post-outbreak guilt. And it all starts with one of the meanest remakes ever made.
Call an ambulance!
Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead doesn't waste a second. The opening alone is a masterclass in how to kick off an outbreak. Quiet suburbia, a blood-soaked kid, and then total chaos as the world collapses overnight. The big hook here isn't just zombies in a mall. It's how fast and mean these things are. These aren't shambling corpses sauntering along the countryside. They're sprinting, snarling missiles that never get tired. Now, the mall feels safe until you realize it's just a nicer looking cage. You've got some of the nastiest, most memorable scenes in modern zombie cinema. The pregnant woman, the zombie baby, the rooftop celebrity sniper game. This movie balances dark humor with real dread, and when the survivors finally try to escape, the armored buses, the chainsaws, the bodies piling up, it's pure relentless chaos. So if you want a zombie movie that actually feels like the world is ending in front of you, this is still one of the best. Train to Busan is what happens when you mix a disaster movie, a family drama, and a zombie outbreak, and then lock all of it inside of a moving train. The virus hits fast. One infected passenger boards, and within minutes you've got entire cars overrun. The zombies here move kind of like a wave. When they crash into a window or pile into a compartment, it's like watching a flood of teeth and broken bones. What makes this one stand out is how much you actually care about the people. You got the selfish father trying to redeem himself, a pregnant couple, a little girl who has to watch adults make horrible choices. When the doors slam shut and certain passengers are left outside on purpose, it's not just scary, it's ugly, but in a very human way. By the time we reach the final chapter, it's less about who survives and more about what this outbreak dragged out of each and every person on board. #Alive takes away the open road and traps you in a nightmare that most of us secretly fear. Being stuck in your own apartment while the world falls apart outside. We follow a gamer who wakes up to a zombie outbreak in his building. No food deliveries, no power, no help coming, just a balcony, a phone that's dying, and a hallway full of things that want to rip you apart. The tension comes from how small the world is. You're counting rations with him. You're watching him make stupid decisions because he's panicking and he's all alone. When he finally realizes there's another survivor across the way, it shifts from how do I stay alive to how do we get out of here together? Between the creepy firefighter zombies, the failed attempts at rescue, and that feeling of absolute isolation, #Alive turns a simple setup into a surprisingly tense, relatable survival horror story.
Morning, class. Good morning, Miss Justina. No, please don't do that. They're only children. Stop it!
Okay, I've covered this one in a past video, but it really deserves to be here again. The girl with all the gifts takes the standard infected formula and twists it into something smarter and far more tragic. Instead of mindless biters, we get hungries. Okay, they're infected by a fungus that's taken over the world, and London is pretty much gone. Humanity is hanging on by a thread, and our main character? It's a child that looks very innocent, acts very intelligent, but still has that infection inside her. The best scenes are the ones that force you to question who the real monsters are. Soldiers terrified of kids, scientists willing to do anything for a cure, and then there's Melanie, stuck between the two of them, trying to prove she's more than just a lab rat. When the story finally moves into the overgrown city and we see just how far the fungus has spread, it stops being about saving what's left and becomes more about what the next version of this world might look like, with or without us. This one actually surprised me with the amount of gore being splashed on the screen. I'm actually curious to know how many gallons of fake blood they used making this thing. The sadness is for people who think they've seen it all and want to be proven wrong. This isn't your typical zombie rage virus where people just bite and tear. The infected here stay aware. They're not just hungry, they're cruel. They enjoy what they're doing, and that makes every single encounter feel 10 times more disturbing. The film throws you into a crowded city street, packed with trains, hospital, places that already feel tense, and then cranks the violence way past what most movies even dare to show you. Sharp tools, sudden attacks, scenes that don't really cut away when you expect them to. And what makes it hit really hard is the complete collapse of any sense of safety or morality. Even if you survive a scene in the sadness, you're not walking away clean. This one isn't about hope, it's about how ugly humanity can get when all the restraints are gone.
Ain't nobody immune here but us.
Doris.
Here, Chief. Today's been crazy.
Blood Quantum gives the zombie genre a perspective it desperately needed. An indigenous community facing the end of the world on its own terms. The setup is brilliant. First Nations people on a reservation discover that they are immune to the infection. Everyone outside their borders isn't so lucky. Suddenly the res becomes the last safe place, and the power dynamic flips. You still get the gore, the hacked up corpses, the bloody fishing docks, bodies torn apart at the fence line. But underneath that, there is a story about colonization, borders, and what it means when the people who are once pushed aside are now the ones in control. And that makes Blood Quantum really stand out. It's not just zombies show up and people run. It's what do you do when you finally have all the leverage in a world that tried to erase you?
There was so much chaos after the outbreak. It was 2 years before we could begin to re-enter the city.
They communicate in a way that we will never understand.
Oh, God.
The Cured asks a question most zombie movies ignore. What happens after the cure? The outbreak's over. A treatment exists. The former infected are being slowly reintegrated into society. They look normal, but they remember everything they did while they were monsters. Every attack, every bite, every murder. It's all still in their heads. Now imagine trying to go back to work, back to your family, or back to your neighbors who watched you tear their loved ones apart. The Cure turns the zombie story into kind of a social horror experiment about stigma, guilt, and the terrifying possibility of relapse. The most chilling moments aren't the flashbacks of attacks. It's the quiet scenes where you see how much everyone wants to pretend it's all fine while knowing it absolutely isn't. When protests turn violent, the line between cured and monster begins to blur again, and it feels kind of like a second outbreak. Only this time it's driven by fear and resentment just as much as the original infection. All right, so those are my 7 zombie movies that actually do something different with the genre. Whether it's pure chaos, emotional trauma, or just pushing the brutality way past the usual limits. So what's your go-to zombie movie that you think everyone's been sleeping on? Drop your picks in the comments, and I will see you guys next time.